Did you know a single can of tuna could contain enough mercury to pose health risks? It's a startling thought, but it's the reality we face. This isn't about avoiding seafood altogether. It's about understanding a hidden danger lurking in our food supply: mercury contamination in tinned tuna. Many people turn to canned tuna as a convenient and affordable source of protein. It's quick, easy, and seemingly healthy. However, this convenience comes at a potential cost, as mercury, a potent neurotoxin, can taint this popular food. This isn't a niche concern. It's a global issue with significant implications for public health. This essay delves into the alarming reality of mercury in tinned tuna. We'll explore how this contamination occurs, its impact on our health, and what we can do to protect ourselves and future generations. Knowledge is power, and understanding this issue is the first step toward making safer, healthier choices. Mercury contamination in our food supply is a consequence of industrial activities ongoing for centuries. The primary culprit is the burning of fossil fuels, particularly coal, releasing mercury into the atmosphere. This mercury settles into our oceans and waterways. Microorganisms convert mercury into methylmercury. This toxic mercury enters the aquatic food chain. Larger fish like tuna accumulate higher mercury levels. Mercury is odorless, tasteless, and invisible, making it a hidden threat in every bite. Bioaccumulation is a key factor that makes mercury contamination in fish so concerning. Imagine a small fish eating tiny organisms that have absorbed mercury. This fish might consume hundreds of these organisms over its lifetime. The mercury accumulates in the fish's tissues. Now, a larger fish eats that smaller fish. This larger predator consumes all the mercury the smaller fish accumulated. As this process repeats, mercury concentration magnifies up the food chain. By the time a top predator like tuna reaches our plates, it can contain high levels of mercury. Tuna holds a unique position in the global seafood market. It's one of the most consumed fish globally, enjoyed for its versatility, affordability, and flavor. Tinned tuna, in particular, is a pantry staple in many households, offering a quick and easy protein source for a variety of meals. However, the very qualities that make tuna so popular also contribute to its potential mercury risks. Tuna species used for canning like skipjack, albacore, and yellowfin are often larger and higher on the food chain, leading to greater mercury accumulation. The convenience of tinned tuna further increases our exposure, as it's readily available and frequently consumed. This presents a dilemma for consumers. Tuna offers valuable nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, protein, and selenium. Yet its mercury content can negate these benefits, especially for vulnerable populations like pregnant women and young children. This isn't about demonizing tuna, but rather about making informed choices to minimize potential risks. Section 5. When protection becomes a risk. Mercury's health impacts. Mercury is a potent neurotoxin, meaning it can damage the nervous system, impacting brain development and function. The effects of mercury poisoning can be severe, ranging from cognitive impairment and developmental delays to tremors, vision and hearing problems, and even paralysis in extreme cases. What makes mercury particularly insidious is that its effects can be subtle and slow to manifest, especially at lower levels of exposure. Symptoms might not be immediately apparent, leading to delayed diagnosis and treatment. This is especially concerning for pregnant women, as mercury can easily cross the placental barrier, potentially harming the developing fetus. Exposure to mercury in utero can have lifelong consequences, impacting a child's cognitive development, motor skills, and overall health. The risks are real and significant, demanding our attention and action. It's not just about protecting our own health, but safeguarding the well-being of future generations. Section 6. Developmental dangers. Mercury's threat to children. Children are particularly vulnerable to the harmful effects of mercury exposure. Their brains and nervous systems are still developing, making them more susceptible to damage from toxins like mercury. Even small amounts of mercury exposure during critical developmental stages can have lasting impacts on a child's cognitive abilities, learning, and behavior. Studies have linked mercury exposure in children to a range of developmental issues. These include reduced IQ scores, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD, impaired memory and language skills, delayed motor development, and an increased risk of autism spectrum disorder. These findings underscore the urgency of addressing mercury contamination in our food supply. Protecting children from the invisible threat of mercury is not just a matter of public health. It's about safeguarding their right to a healthy and productive future. Section 7. Unmasking the culprit. Identifying high mercury fish. Not all fish are created equal when it comes to mercury content. Larger, predatory fish higher on the food chain tend to accumulate higher levels of mercury. It's crucial for consumers to be aware of which fish are more likely to contain high levels of mercury. The FDA and EPA have issued advisories regarding fish consumption and mercury levels. They recommend limiting or avoiding high mercury fish, especially for pregnant women and young children. High mercury fish to limit or avoid include tuna, swordfish, shark, tilefish, marlin, and orange roughy. Lower mercury fish to enjoy include salmon, sardines, anchovies, herring, shrimp, tilapia, cod, and haddock. By making informed choices, we can minimize mercury exposure while enjoying seafood's benefits. Section 8. Expert opinions, a consistent call for action. The dangers of mercury contamination in seafood, particularly in tinned tuna, are not a new discovery. Scientists, health experts, and organizations like Foodwatch and Bloom have been sounding the alarm for years, urging stricter regulations and greater consumer awareness. Foodwatch, a European consumer organization dedicated to food safety and transparency, has conducted extensive research on mercury levels in tinned tuna, revealing concerning inconsistencies and a lack of adequate labeling. Their findings highlight the need for greater transparency in the fishing industry and stricter regulations to protect consumers. Bloom, an international nonprofit organization focused on ocean conservation, has also raised concerns about the environmental and health impacts of mercury contamination from industrial activities and overfishing. They advocate for sustainable fishing practices and stricter regulations on mercury emissions to protect both human and ocean health. These expert voices underscore the urgency of addressing mercury contamination in our food system. It's a global issue that requires a collective response from governments, industries, and consumers. Section 9. The need for stringent regulations. Addressing mercury contamination in our food supply, particularly in widely consumed products like tinned tuna, requires a multi-pronged approach. While individual consumer choices are important, they cannot be the sole solution. We need strong, enforceable regulations to protect public health. Stricter regulations on mercury emissions from industrial sources are crucial to reducing the amount of mercury entering our environment and contaminating our food chain. Governments and international bodies must prioritize phasing out coal-fired power plants and transitioning to cleaner, renewable energy sources. Additionally, we need more rigorous testing and monitoring of mercury levels in seafood, particularly in species commonly consumed in large quantities like tuna. Clear, consistent labeling of mercury levels in seafood products is essential to empower consumers to make informed choices. While some progress has been made, current regulations are often inadequate and inconsistently enforced. The health of our citizens, particularly vulnerable populations like pregnant women and children, should not be compromised by inaction or weak regulations. Section 10. Protecting consumers, a shared responsibility. While stronger regulations are essential, consumers also have a role to play in protecting themselves and their families from mercury exposure. Education and awareness are key. By understanding the risks associated with mercury contamination and knowing which fish are higher in mercury, we can make informed choices about our seafood consumption. This includes choosing lower mercury fish options, varying your seafood choices to reduce potential exposure, checking for advisories and recommendations from reputable sources like the FDA and EPA, and supporting sustainable fishing practices that help protect ocean health and reduce mercury contamination. Consumers can also advocate for greater transparency in the seafood industry by demanding clear labeling of mercury levels in seafood products. By working together, consumers, governments, and industry stakeholders can create a safer, healthier food system. Section 11. Making informed choices for a healthier future. The issue of mercury contamination in our food supply, particularly in tinned tuna, is complex and multifaceted, but it's not insurmountable. By understanding the science, advocating for change, and making informed choices, we can work towards a solution that protects both human and environmental health. This requires a collective effort. Governments must implement and enforce stricter regulations on mercury emissions and seafood safety. The fishing industry must prioritize sustainable practices and transparency, and consumers must stay informed, make conscious choices, and demand better from the systems that provide our food. The future of our oceans, our food supply, and our health depends on it. Let's choose to act now, for ourselves,